Hello, welcome to another edition of Pierce Brothers. I'm Brian Pierce. Today we're just going to take kind of a quick glance at the Smith & Wesson model 1854. I've got one in 44 mag, one in 45 Colt with walnut stocks, wood stocks rather. Just going to do kind of a quick overview of them today. I've taken these guns apart, examined them closely. They're interesting guns. They've shot them both a little bit. Still doing a little bit of barrel breaking with them. The accuracy seems respectable on both of them. There's a couple of things that kind of jump out at me that we'll do a full review on this later, go into much greater detail, but there's a couple of things that jump out at me that are a little bit maybe of a concern. The barrels are good quality, but the barrel, the receiver, and the bolt are the only parts on them that are machined. The rest of them are MIM parts. Now, MIM parts are not always bad, but in some applications they can be a problem. The triggers are kind of heavy on them, so I tested them. They're both well above 6 pounds. On a MIM part, I'm not sure what's going to need to be done to get a excellent trigger pull. Maybe Smith & Wesson will address that at some point. I don't know. They're, as most people figured out, that's the year Smith & Wesson really began in business, was 1854. That's where the name came from. But they've basically copied the Marlin system, the model 1889 that evolved into the improved model 1894. Very similar gun. They do have a round bolt instead of a flat bolt. A little more strength there with that. But Marlin learned a long time ago that forged parts were a critical part to longevity and to strength, and so Smith & Wesson's history is still mostly ahead of it. It'll be interesting to see how they hold up from that respect. They come with a XS rear sight that's in a rail. Of course, they've got a bead front sight. They're threaded, so they can be suppressed, whatever. The actions are a little bit gritty on them. They're not bad, but they're just a little gritty. Maybe that'll wear in, maybe it'll improve. Those parts are coated with a high-tech coating. I don't know, long term we'll kind of see what that's going to do to things. It has a flat face square trigger. The length of pull is a little bit shorter than Marlin's or Henry's, which at some point we will do a comparison test on those guns. They feature traditional 3-cock position hammer, or 3-position hammer rather. They have a cross bolt safety similar to the Marlins produced from 83 forward. They have a feature that I actually kind of have some concerns about, and that is the magazine tube. Henry offers it where you pull them out, and of course you have a loading like similar to a 22, but the Smith & Wesson, you pull it out and it's really for an unload feature. The problem you have, or at least this is how I see it, a gentleman goes up into a tree stand or a deer blind, whatever, and he waits, puts around the chamber so he's nice and quiet, puts his safety on, and doesn't get a shot that day or whatever. So he's going to unload the gun. Now, if that's how you're going to unload it, here's the problem you have. You got around the chamber, even with the safety on, it's breaking a cardinal rule to have a hand in front of the muzzle. And so to take the magazine tube and dump it, the cartridges kind of go everywhere, a little hard to catch. But you're also working a hand in front of the muzzle, which is a concern. I've been using lever guns, I mean, more years than I care to admit, more than a half a century, but I personally would rather just cycle them through, and you don't even have to cycle them all the way. You can go to that position, kick one out, do your next one, bring it half closed, open it, and dump it out. Takes a second, but you know what? It's a much safer method, excuse me, to run a lever gun. They're not a bad gun. They're maybe not as fluid as the Ruger and the Henrys, but we'll discuss those in detail later. We'll take a much closer look at these. We'll run literally a couple thousand rounds through each of these guns and give you a much greater opinion in a couple of weeks when we do a greater review. But we'll really burn them and see what they're going to do. Thanks for joining, and we're going to shoot just a couple of rounds for fun. Again, we'll put a lot of rounds down these. We'll give barrels a chance to break in. We'll get on a sandbag rest and put them on paper. We'll see what they're really doing accuracy wise, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for joining us today.